optimism has been a theme again today, right? So I think some of that optimism, you need that energy, right? So if you're in it, and to your point, you haven't maybe, the seeds haven't, sprung and you haven't reaped the benefits yet, maintain the optimism because that exudes out, right? And you put that energy out in the world, you put that energy out in meetings that you have and conversations and interviews. And so you need that energy, whether you've been in it for a while. I think maintain that positive energy for yourself and for the rest, right? I think that's very important. But the second is that, I mean, we talked about leadership and coaching and teams. It's not a one-man show or a one-woman show, right? It's a personal journey and it's your personal career. But I'm a big fan of Scott Galloway. One of his sayings is, agency or excellence is in the agency of others. Bring people into the fold, into the mix. Like, you're not in that journey alone. So whether that's, friends and partners in your life, family members, as well as other acquaintances and professionals that are going through this as well. And you can be, comrades together through their journey or people that have gone through it. Just kind of build your team, build your sort of board of advisors and supporters along the way so that you don't feel like you're alone at it. And don't be afraid to ask for help and to ask for advice and to have those conversations, because I think they're very important.
Today's guest is a partnership executive and angel investor in AI and tech. From his early days in digital advertising to joining Snap at a pivotal moment to help launch its scale their international business, to now leading agency partnerships and AI at Microsoft, his career is a masterclass in building relationships that move industries forward. Along the way, he's also carved out a path in the investing world, backing the next generation of founders as general partner of Ghost Angels. Max Rivera, welcome to the show. Excited to have you. How are things?
Thanks, Janet. Things are great. A little gloomy here in New York today, but otherwise really good and really happy to be here with you.
Oh, of course. I usually kick off my podcast episodes with where people are from, and some people even start with childhood.
Yeah, it defines a lot of who I am. So I'm born and raised in a small little country in Central America called Honduras. Yeah, just this week, actually, I celebrated 17 years of moving to this country. I moved here by myself to go to college.
Wow.
And then found ways to stay. And I'm happy to, y'all still have me here in this country. I'm happy to still be here. Again, like I said, small country, very proud of where I'm from. I think it obviously shaped a lot of who I am. I always call it as a land of hustlers in the most kind of positive way, super vibrant and kind of beautiful culture. And I was very fortunate to also be born to a great family. Both my parents are very hard workers, entrepreneurs in their own way. My mom is both an entrepreneur and a scientist. My dad is a businessman, and was very lucky to grow up in a great household, and feel very fortunate to have that upbringing. And at a young age, I was just very determined to come to the U.S. to study, and so I remember, from teenage years saying that and just being very determined, and then applied to schools and found my way to get into college here. And so moved here at a young age too, as I moved here when I was 17. And did college here and then stayed and worked throughout here.
Amazing. No, I did not know about you, first of all. And we're both first generation immigrant, except I came when I was 8 years old from Korea. So.
Oh, awesome. I didn't know that either. Wonderful.
Yeah, new things. Tell me more about what piqued your curiosity around United States.
I mean, I don't know that it was that thought out. I mean, I loved American culture, both from TV, and I grew up on rap and hip hop in the 90s and early 2000s. And just was fascinated with American culture. It's obviously the leader of the world and the best kind of country. I think from the outside at least, and that was my perception. And just felt like it was the land of opportunities, as cliche as that sound. And funny story too, I think I had two countries in my eyes. One was Italy, and again, just kind of fascinated with that culture. So I'd applied to some schools in Milan and then to some schools here, and ended up getting a good opportunity to come to the States, and happy to have taken that path.
So cool. And you're 17, you're moving to a new country solo. Do you feel like that was a big, bold move on your part back then as a 17-year-old? Or when you kind of look back, you're like, actually, that kind of felt natural?
kind of unnatural, and it's that beautiful kind of ignorant, young, blissful mind, right? You just don't know what you don't know, and you jump into adventures without knowing all the implications or what it's going to feel like. And I love that kind of fearlessness that came maybe from a place of ignorance of having not done this before, right? And just like something that feels exciting, but not thinking about the downside or the like difficulties that come with it. And so something that felt very exciting, but very quickly as I got here too, you start to feel those things that you didn't realize you were going to have to deal with, right? All the cultural shocks. As much as I had visited the States many times before, and as much as I watched a lot of American TV and thought I was
Yeah.
familiar with American culture, you immediately get to see it when you're actually here. And then to add more context to that story, where I landed and the first place where I moved to is a small town in northwest eastern Pennsylvania called Erie, Pennsylvania, which most people either know for hockey or around election cycles because it's always like a very specific voting district. And
Yeah.
so again, talk about a cultural shock. This is a very small, depressed from the kind of economic perspective, given the history and industrial the city has. It's very American, it's very white, it's non-diverse, and so the cultural shock was amazing, and I call it my immersion into American culture in all the
Mm.
senses, right? And so
Mm.
those are all those things that I never thought about much when I decided to come here. And I'm grateful to have had that experience because I really got immersed into this culture, into the country, and got to see that side of things, which I think was fascinating, including the weather, which was also a big shock. It's one of the
Yeah.
snowiest and coldest cities in the country. And so training by fire, and I think it created a sense in me of resilience and
Mhm.
both, again, weather, the cultural shock, like everything kind of going through those things, the immigrant experience then creates, I think, this resilience. And when you face other adversities then later in school or in business and in your professional life, I always draw and I'm thankful to that experience because I think, it kind of created a callus, if you will, to also endure or go through other situations that are difficult
Mhm.
and take them with stride.
Definitely. Can you imagine hockey in Honduras being like a top sport?
I don't even think I knew it was a sport. Yeah. Not at
Wow.
all.
So Pennsylvania. How long were you there for? Were you there for a while?
I was there for 3 years, my first 3 years here.
Mm. And then what happened when it came to college?
Yeah, so I did a very traditional business marketing degree in college there. The school itself was actually very diverse, which is how I landed there. They
Sure.
had an amazing international recruitment program, but it was this small bubble in this non-diverse town. You could go into this university that then was so diverse. And one of the things too about countries like Honduras is that you don't get to see that diversity either, right?
Sure.
So even from the Latino experience, when I was in Honduras, I was a Honduran. I never thought of myself as a Latino, if you will, right? That's very much an American way of looking at demographics.
Yeah.
And so I always say that when I moved to Erie, Pennsylvania, is when I became a Latino. Before that, I was a Honduran. So
Mhm.
getting to meet people from all of Latin America, which was amazing, getting to see the familiarities and connect with other folks was amazing. But then, I met people from all over the world. My first roommate was from Vietnam. I met people from Bhutan, from all over Africa and Asia and Europe. It was just like an amazing experience. Again, in the middle of this like very non-diverse country, so almost like two polar opposites.
Yes.
That experience was fantastic. I did had a short stint in Italy in between those periods, so that
Hmm.
dream also come up. It just seems like this wild journey of moving from Honduras to Erie, Pennsylvania to spend 9 months in Tuscany in Italy, and then back to Erie, Pennsylvania, in the short span of 3 years. But again, that kind of youthful ignorance bliss that that can be both good and bad.
Yeah. Talk about drinking out of a fire hose right away.
Yes, yeah.
And so here's Max in Pennsylvania going through his studies. Were you thinking, hey, I'm going to go into the tech industry? What was kind of running through your head at the time?
In terms of career paths, I always describe myself as this mixture of creative, but don't have the artistic skill set. So I'm not really good at drawing or painting or singing or really anything artistic, but I love
Mhm.
the arts and I love the creative field. And I'm also like a huge geek as a kid and a teenager. I mean, I remember just being fascinated with the internet, I had a long bookmark of just websites. I would just scour the internet and just try to find cool websites, and I would just bookmark them and like collected, digital bookmarks of websites. And I was just fascinated with like the internet, but never enough to maybe want to pursue like a career as an engineer. I learned how to code myself a little bit, but like never was good enough or interested enough to go super deep in the engineering world.
Yeah.
I am very extroverted, and I'm a people person, and business comes natural to me. And so that's the third aspect of my life is just business. As a kid, I sold things when I was in all through first grade, all the way through high school. I sold little things through my classmates and teachers even, and that all comes natural. And so I'm this combination of creative tech and business, which now I can describe. Of course, at the time, I maybe wasn't as introspective to know that,
Yeah.
but it led me to pursue a career in marketing with the rise of
Mhm.
digital marketing and everything. My first internship when I was in college was at a digital marketing agency. And I got to learn about Google AdWords and SEO and SEM and the rise of all that at the time. And I found that perfect mix of, okay, there's some creative aspects of this, there's technology behind it, and I could see it, and you can see code and things in running digital ads. And then
Mhm.
there's the business outcomes and what we're trying to drive on the business side. And so that's how I ended up pursuing the marketing degree, ended up doing jobs in marketing, eventually landing a career in advertising that then led into tech. So that's kind of my tech story or journey, is that, of course, the tech companies have advertising businesses and they hire folks from the advertising world. And so eventually got a call from Snap when it was the early days when they were building their advertising business, and took that jump. But really, I was in this pursuit of finding this creative tech and business world, which I've come to learn in the last few years. This amazing Japanese concept of ikigai that I
Yes.
think speaks to me finding this Venn diagram, right, of like things that I'm passionate about, things that I'm good at, and things that I can get paid for, or that
Mhm.
are good for the world.
Mhm. Yes, completely. What was it like in the advertising agency?
It was an amazing learning ground. I think advertising agencies, I've heard people describe them as great places to start your career because you get to learn a ton, and great places to end your career because you have a good time as a senior executive in an agency. They tend to be tough in the middle parts of your career. Eventually is what led me to New York, where I am now too, and kind of pursuing that Madison Avenue dream to work in the big agencies here. And you get to see like all vendors in the space from all different aspects. And so in the advertising world, from the media platforms and providers to all the different providers around measurement and technology that powers all the advertising and all of that. It was the most fun time of my career to date, and I'm very close to friends from those early days in my career.
So good. So here's Max in New York. You said you got a call from Snap and so started working at Snap. Were you in LA after the fact?
No, always in New York.
Great. What was that experience like working in a company that was headquartered on the other side of the coast?
Yeah. First time I went to LA was for Snap onboarding. So I had never been to California or to LA.
What was that?
That was amazing. Yeah. I mean, I fell in love with LA, not just that first time, but then, I got to go a few times a year just having Snap. So somewhat got to live that bi-coastal dream, if you will, because lived here in New York and I love New York. I've been in New York now for 12 years. Definitely close, call New York home. But then, got to go to LA as much as I needed to, sometimes maybe too often, but like again, loved and being able to have that weather in that time. And one thing that I should have mentioned is a great part of my journey as well in this professional kind of side that we've been talking about. We started with personal and my upbringing. It's also my own personal life as I grew up here. I had a daughter when I was just joining Snap. She's incredible.
Wow.
She's 10 years old now,
Great.
started my own family. And that was such a grounding moment in my career. I usually tell people it's
Mhm.
been one of the best things for my career was to have kids, to have kids
Wow.
young, especially and early in my career. That
Yeah.
world of possibility that I was describing before of looking at the world in this kind of open shell, I can go anywhere. It's exciting as a young person and it can sound really cool. But I loved the focus when I had my daughter and I was like, okay, the world is not open like that anymore, right? Like now I have to
Mhm.
focus. Now I have to be here. I have to be here with her. I can't just all of a sudden, want to go live in Chile or, go work here. And some people see that as a negative and it can be limiting, right? I can see that. But to me, it was actually such a great focusing thing. And to then like focus on my career, but not for my own ambitions or my own things. Like now I'm working and I got to work hard and I got to make it for my family and for my daughter until that.
Oh,
Like it was just such a good motivating factor for me. So
Yeah.
you can literally see almost like a hockey stick. If you were to put my career and my professional journey on a chart, you would see like the hockey stick moment was like right after the birth of my daughter. And so it was a huge kind of motivating factor. So I think worth mentioning that since we're touching on both personal and professional and how those tie together.
Yes. Thank you for sharing, and how sweet. And I just can't help but also notice the sense of optimism, right? I think, like you said, people could have taken it another way and say, wow, that's another set of responsibilities. What do I do now? And maybe fatherhood unlocked another new level of max that maybe you would have never considered.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And look, obviously, I've done a lot of introspection, and I'm able to play Monday night quarterback, as they call it here. But yeah, when I look back, I can reflect and see those moments, or I can reflect how I was chasing when I describe that creative tech and business thing. Right? It's not that I'm an 18-year-old or 20-year-old, plotting and like writing all this out and doing all that introspection. I hope I was. But I wasn't, I was just kind of following my instincts and following, the opportunities that came across. But when I look back, I can really see, okay, I was pursuing that and I was good in that industry because of these reasons, because it combined these things that I liked and that I'm good at. And I can see how, like, oh, yeah, I was young and had a daughter and was starting in tech, but I can see then how that helped, right? But yeah, at the time, I wasn't, that introspective or, that knowledgeable to know the impact that those things were having on me.
Yeah. As Steve Jobs says, everything connects if you were to kind of look back.
Yeah.
Um, and so Snap is where you really built your career in terms of the different levels and promotions you receive. What about Snap was very interesting and special for you to stay that long?
Yeah, I mean, the culture and the people, I think by far, I think were the most interesting. I think the product too from the beginning, and then as I got deeper into the company and understood the product instincts and the philosophy and where the product was focused, that was very motivating. I think when I joined, it was exciting. It was this amazing company about to IPO and had this amazing meteoric rise, and that was great. But then we settled the IPO and we had all these other troubles, and the company, especially the company perception, turned. And that was motivating. Like, I'm just kind of this person that loves the underdog story and the underdog sentiment.
Yeah.
And so that was really good. And then we went through those periods, and then Snap had another point where, it was back on the rise, if you will, and like back on the pedestal, and then back down again, right? So this kind of, pedestal or this kind of roller coaster moment. And so a lot of people feel like those times are very challenging, and some people can't deal with that volatility and the change that comes with that, and how you emotionally feel through all that. But for me, it was actually like the motivating factor. Just when I thought things were great and doing really well, then we had another challenge to deal with, and that's when I actually kind of put my boots on and went to work, if you will. And
Yeah.
so I thought, it was a great time to be at the company. And another good identity thing, since I know that's one of the themes of your podcast, is that, coming from the advertising industry, and my role at Snap was within the sales organization, but I led partnerships and international expansion was my first role at the company. But you come from advertising and you're in the sales org, a lot of the people in the sales org at Snap, even today, if you ask them, what industry do you work in? I think a lot of people would say, oh, I work in ad sales or I work in media. And there's
Mm.
this identity of a person that works in tech that I think is very different.
Hmm.
Um, and I still see it today. I meet people that are in ad sales that are at tech companies. It could be the biggest tech companies. And you ask them and they're like, they don't consider themselves as part of the tech industry. And they don't have that identity of like, I'm in tech. And I
Very
certainly went through
fascinating.
that transformation myself. Yeah. I went from being like, oh, I'm in media and I'm in advertising. And then, no, I'm in the tech industry and I'm part of the tech industry and I work in the tech industry. So I went through that as well myself during my time at Snap, that I think was great and super eye opening, and eventually led to a lot of the things that I'm doing now as well. You can be somebody in the finance and accounting team, but if you do that for a tech company, like you're in the tech industry, right? Like you don't have to be an engineer coding. And as we think about the future, I think even this today in 2026, with the world of AI and everything that's happening, that's more and more true than ever, right? I think
Yes.
an accountant, a lawyer, a salesperson at a tech company is now using technology in their everyday life. And so, yeah, I think, just at the time, there was this, mixed identity, if you will.
Hmm. I totally see that. And that resonates. Um, Tell me more about stepping into leadership roles within Snap over the years. How was that experience? In regards to identity, you go from maybe managing few members to maybe different channels, different geos, different people.
Yeah, I think, first getting into people management and into leadership is always a big challenge, right? I think almost to parenting, right? Like there's not much. You can read books, you can go through courses, you can learn about leadership, you can learn about management, but I think until you do it, right? Like you get to learn on the job. I would say I'm very grateful for people that have first time managers as their managers because you have to go through their growing pains, right? And so, thankful for those that were, the first that I got to manage at Snap and the first team that I got to build for their patience or for what they taught me into for the first time. It's just really recognize that you're given like a new job, right? Like, yes, you still have to do your trade, but this is a whole new job and track. And so you have to learn it and it's a muscle. And so, I spent time doing development. Snap was great about giving resources for managers. My favorite analogy on this is Usain Bolt and his coach. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
ever seen a picture of Usain Bolt and his coach.
No, I
It's
didn't actually.
Yeah,
No.
it's an image to see because Usain Bolt, right, is one of the best athletes in the world. He's
Yep.
extremely in shape. His coach is not in the same shape. And so if you see pictures of them together, right, you see this coach that's like not nearly in the shape that Usain Bolt is. And by the way, that happens with athletes most of the time, right? But this is a little bit more of a contrast. And I think that's the best image, right? Like I'm your coach, not because I am, in the following the metaphor, because I am faster than you or a best athlete than you. In fact, you are the athlete, like you are the star. And I'm here to give you the outside perspective and to coach and nudge and to give you outside direction and context so that you can perform your best.
Mhm.
And so I think as part of that was also kind of flexing the styles. And so, people under my management and those that can take that approach and leverage it, right? And I think be honest about their ways of working, their faults, things that they're not as good at, as opposed to other people on my team that we had to work on or where I had a tougher time with those because you can't help as much, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so, yeah, my best relationships when they were like really honest and open, and we knew the intention, and it wasn't from a supervision or trying to get knock points down or be negative. And so, my best relationships were when we can have that honest conversation around things, and they knew the intentions behind it all.
Yeah. And what I also notice as theme is the adaptability that you need. And you need that from a management standpoint, but you also need that in your team member standpoint to continually grow, to be open minded, to have that growth mindset. And throughout your journey at Snap, it sounds like there was another different way of growing, which is through investing. Can you tell me more about how that happened?
Yeah. Yeah. So investing happened first just opportunistically, like things, came to me through friends that were starting their own things.
And to
I think
clarify, this is private investing.
private investing, yes. But by the way, I mean, even public investing as an immigrant, since we touched on that too, right? Like even that was like such a learning thing. It's still
Yeah.
learning a lot in that, and so kind of learning all across investing, but private investing in particular, and angel investing first came through a friend that had a company. He was raising friends and family around. This is the first time I saw a safe note. To Google what that was, right? Had to learn
Yeah.
all of that,
Mhm.
and didn't put much thought into it. It was a friend. I supported it. Then it wasn't until 3 years later I was doing some coaching and development work with a professional coach and trying to find and do a lot of this introspection that we're doing today, trying to find
Oh.
things that motivate me. I was at a time at Snap during all that tumult and kind of up and down that we discussed too, where I felt like I needed more and I felt like I needed a push. And so I found some of that internally, but I think through this coaching and development work, and if that's one lesson for the listeners too, is just to not put everything on your job. Like it's not
Mhm.
supposed to give you everything, right? It's not supposed to pay you the big bucks and top tier of the market and also be super motivating and also be super stable and also be like you can't put all the stock on this one job, right? It's not
Mhm.
going to give you everything at all times. And so when you recognize that too, like for me, it came, okay, what can I do that is in my control? Like there's things about the job that I can't control,
Right.
and that I can't get out of it, but what can I control? And so realize that working with early stage entrepreneurs is very motivating. Being able to mentor and give advice to early stage entrepreneurs was something that I wanted to pursue and explore. And so created that kind of path and work with much more intentionality, right, than before, where it was just opportunistic things that have come about. And so I set out to explore that world intentionally this time.
Mhm.
And so I, built a plan, put some money aside, figured out, started talking to people about it, started learning about it, and it was very intentional about learning that side, and slowly kind of cut a bug of what that was. But my first year or so, sometimes even to this day, I'm still just learning, and I'm learning
Yeah.
about it by doing. Right, that's
Mhm.
just how I learn. And so some people decided during these times to go to school to get an MBA, and that might work for people, right? But for me, it felt like the math just didn't math when I decided I wanted to invest some money. It was like, okay, I can either pay that to tuition, or I can pay that to a course, or I can go to conferences, or I can invest that money and then just like put in the time and work. And if I'm lucky, I get my money back, which is not an option on the other side, right? If I were to go to school or to do other things, if I'm a little bit luckier, I get, some money on top. And if I'm really lucky, I can actually make a lot of money. But I didn't come into it with this kind of financial outcomes goal and objective of I want to, be super rich by investing and want to have these massive exits. I came into it to the motivation of wanting to explore early stage companies, to see the
Mhm.
frontier of tech, to support entrepreneurs, and to invest money on learning that for myself. And so that's kind of how I started on that. And now I'm about 5 years into that, and yeah, really passionate about that space.
Yeah. And I love that you had that intentionality of who am I outside of an organization? Were those revelations that catapulted you into maybe seeking coaching, or did that happen in the world of coaching?
Yeah, it was through, again, amazing resources that Snap provided, and so we had access to this, and so that was really good. And then to be, completely transparent too, in 2022, if people remember within tech, right, there was a big downturn in the tech
Oh.
industry in general.
Mhm.
I saw a lot of my peers outside of Snap either getting laid off and all these companies, and you hear it in the news and the headlines, right? So that obviously makes you think. And so I think that was kind of the where it all started. I was lucky that I was not part of any layoffs at Snap at that time or anything. But then I found myself, okay, I was like, I'm here. I'm not going
Mhm.
anywhere. I got to bunker down. And how can I still enjoy and find motivation in this amazing opportunity that I still have, right? And so that was kind of where the work came, and where that realization of, okay, let's not put everything on the job, right? And so how do you reign some control? And I think identity was a huge part of it as well.
Mhm.
Uh, when I thought about leaving Snap, and again, in my head, I was pretty much gone already or going to leave. And in that time, it's like, okay, it's such a part of my identity. Like it feels like
Yeah.
a part of your identity is dying if you leave the company, or if, again, God forbid, you get laid off. It just feels like your identity gets impacted. And I didn't like that feeling, right? Like I don't want my identity tied to a company and to a job. And when you have that light bulb moment, and again, I was lucky to have it before it happened, right? And before, I'm forced to have it. And so that really pushed me. I was like, okay, I can't be the Snapchat person, right? I can't be tied to it. And of
Mhm.
course, it's a big part of my story. It's a big part of my journey. I'm proud of it. We've talked a lot about it today,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be just that, right? That was like the big catapult of going through that work and of finding something outside of it. I think that was like a big part of it too, right? It's just that
Yeah.
let's find something outside that defines me beyond just whatever company, and knowing that one day there was going to be another company and there was going to be another job, and making sure that when that comes, is not going to be all about that next thing either. Is that I'm more than just whatever job I have, whatever title I have.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because as an executive and career coach, I see a lot of that when people have to go through pivots. And so there's this grieving process that you kind
Mm.
of have to go through before you get to that breakthrough stage of, okay, what else is there? Okay, what is a 2.0 version? What's a 3.0 version?
By the way, I'll just note too, it made me better at the job too, because I think, and again, this is a coach that I got through Snap, that Snap was, giving us as a resource. And so you might think, oh, that might be negative to me at Snap and my role there, right? But in fact, and I used to tell this to my team, and I used to talk about this openly at Snap. It made me better once I realized that, right? I was better at Snap. I would show up knowing what I'm there for, knowing what my objectives are, having motivation in other places, having
Clarity.
satisfaction in other places.
Mhm.
So then when I showed up at Snap, I showed up with clarity, not this frustration and sometimes anger that people can get about how things are not working at their job, or how they're not getting a promotion, or how they're not getting a title that they want. Or, you put all that aside because you accept that as a reality,
Mhm.
and you try to satisfy those things elsewhere, and now you can just show up for what you need to do and do it with a better attitude. And so it made me way better. And that was the last, I still, after that period, was at Snap for 3 more years. And those were great years too of tremendous growth and, good performance and amazing experience. But the mindset shift that happened was very key for me in those last 3 years at Snap.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing how many years in between, because sometimes people think, oh, if I think of something, it should happen within 2 weeks. Something that I thought of, it should happen next month.
Yeah.
Everything has its own timing.
Yeah.
And so 2025, what happens?
2025, in between there, since we talked about personal too, I had my second kid, which I think aligns with the timeline, right? Oh, great. I can focus and get motivation and inspiration from that as well, while I have this very stable and great place that I call home, Snap, to support me through that. And so that was really great on the personal side and get to do that as well. So 2025, my son was now 2, and I had been feeling that I was ready for something else. The world is changing beneath us, right? Especially in the tech industry, but all across. Lots of continuous change at Snap that I had gone through many times. I had gone through that roller coaster ride, which I didn't mind, right? But after a while, even a roller coaster can get less exhilarating once you've done the loop a few times, right? And so, I wasn't feeling that I was, up for more of that. Like I thought it would be fine if I stayed a little bit longer, but needed that push to maybe explore other opportunities. And so I decided to end that chapter, which was incredible. Had that really good preparation, long 3 years, right, of decoupling some of my identity from the job that I think really helped to take that leap. I could focus on other side projects. So, continued my investing journey during that, period after Snap, set up Ghost Angels that I know we'll maybe talk about a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Had some time to think about what was going to be next and to really be exploratory. One of the things I realized too is that if I was really going to find what's next, I couldn't do it while I was still at the job, because that work of finding what's next, both in yourself but outwards as well in the market, requires time and effort. And so I
Yeah.
didn't want to do that while I was at the job or just jump to the next thing that came my way. And so made the bet to go and explore and end that chapter at Snap, and eventually ended up starting my role at Microsoft AI towards the end of 2025.
Great. What a lot of beginnings in 2025.
Yeah.
How did you
There's a
stay
lot.
grounded in all of these things?
Well, as you could tell from this, short synopsis of my life that we looked at, it's just kind of my modus operandi, if you will. Like I am comfortable through all these changes. Like I'm not anxious to a lot of these things. I try to stay focused on what I can control. I don't focus a ton on the change. I have an optimistic view of the world and of life, and so that's kind of how I stay grounded. I think one of the things I recommend to or would do for myself is, while there's a lot of change and uncertainty, going back to what you can control. I can control what I do today, this morning. I can control my routine and the micro moments, right? And so I always lean on that, just finding balance on, okay, if professionally or in this side of my life, there's a lot of uncertainty and change, what are other parts of my life that I can control more, where there's maybe going to be a bit more of stability?
Mm.
And sometimes your day might look like, you're code switching between those two sides of your life. But yeah, being able to have that balance, like being able to retreat to a place of stability, whether it's a workout routine, whether it's time with your family, whether it's hobbies and passion points. That's kind of how I do it, just to stay balanced, because it's hard when you're just in the middle of the storm and don't have a place to go and take a breath and reset and then go back at it, right? And so that's kind of how
Mhm.
I manage it.
Yeah, definitely. And what I notice is the sense of betting on oneself. The more you take bets on yourself, the more confidence you'll have, and the more reassurance you have of yourself, you're able to invest in other things and take bets even more externally.
Yeah. And I'm starting to realize that more and more now too. I don't think, again, I'm going through a period that I'm sure I'll look back to today in a few years,
Yeah.
right? And kind of see where I'm going through. But yeah, you kind of need this optimism bias of seeing like, okay, you've done this before, you've taken bets before, you've taken opportunities before, you've taken big roles before and you've succeeded or you've done well. And so you start to see the pattern matching, right? Or you start to see the data that now you have. That as a young person, you don't have as much of those data points and experiences to go off. But as you build experience and a track record in your own career, you can then look back and say, yeah, I've gone into new industries and learned. I've gone into new practices and learned. I've gone into leadership and learned that. I went into investing and learned that. And so at least that's how I am starting to look at it today, and just betting on myself as I learn new things. Because yeah, the world of investing, as I mentioned, I'm continuing to learn that, with what we're doing with Ghost Angels and just continuing to be more sophisticated in terms of how I invest. That's all still new learning opportunities and territories for me, but I'm doing it now with a place of confidence from knowledge that I've explored uncharted territories before in my life and know how to deal with them and have been successful in dealing. That okay, now I can go into uncharted waters and new endeavors with a bit more of that confidence.
Yes. So, Max, tell me more about Ghost Angels. What's that about?
Yeah, and I'm really happy that you're a part of it. So
Yes.
thank you for being on for the journey. But yeah, Ghost Angels, essentially just a collective or a group. It's a community, but it's a fund in the form of a early stage fund where it's a group of Snap alumni like you and me, all investing together in the next generation of tech companies. And so we all share, I think, that shared experience at Snap. We share a way of looking at the world and learn through Snap, whether it was early in our careers or later in our careers. But that experience at Snap, a lot of people agree, is very formative, regardless of when you came into it. And so with that shared experience, we figured we can, put our collective hats together, our collective networks, expertise, and our capital to invest in the next generation of founders. And I think it's a super exciting time to be investing in early stage. And I'm glad to have found a group and have put together a group where we can invest together. And so, yeah, Ghost Angels is a fund of Snap alumni finding the next generation of consumer tech.
Great. And does it specialize in anything in particular that if people are curious and learning more about?
Yeah. The non-official way to describe it, if you will, is that we invest in things that we know as Snap alumni. While there's many exciting industries right now in tech, whether it's biotech or energy or space tech, there's not much of a place for a group of Snap alumni to invest in those, right? And so as a group, what we invest on and what we know the best is consumer tech, is everything around social, whether it's dating, anything around communities and bringing people together. And then anything broadly in media, right? I like to decouple the words social media because I think they're better separate than put together, right? And
Mhm.
so everything on the side of media, from new forms of media to creators and creator marketplaces to entertainment and gaming, fashion tech, music, and then lastly is ad tech, just given again our background in Snap's business in ad tech and martech. So those are our three key areas: social media and ad tech. And now almost obvious to say, but worth noting that everything AI powered. And so where there's founders in the pre-seed or seed stage, they're just starting, they've raised some VC capital and they want to bring on some experienced investors as strategic parts of their cap table. That's the sweet spot for Ghost Angels.
Got it. Great. Amazing. Happy to be part of it. And second year, more things to come.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And so AI in investing, AI in full-time role, AI everywhere. What do you make of just the overall, AI world that we live in today?
Yeah, wow. I mean, do we have another hour or two to go? It's a big question. But yeah, I mean, what an exciting time, I think, in tech, right? I went through some of those way smaller waves, if you will, with mobile and social. And so that was fascinating. But this is just such a wave just across everything in tech. And I love to have a view and a foot in both sides of how it's disrupting established companies and not just disrupting. I'm lucky to be at Microsoft AI that's like actually building and shaping those, right? Being a company that has both infrastructure products on the frontier as well as, consumer and then the application layer products. So it's fascinating to see that and how that, looks at a 50-year-old massive company like Microsoft, as well as on the investing side on how we get to see that in new company formation and companies that just started months ago, a year ago, and how they're using AI and how they're building with AI. So I'd love to kind of operate in that world where I get to see both of them. But it's everywhere, to your point, right? It's not just within tech. I mean, I was having conversations with my mom just a couple of weeks ago, right? And how she's using AI, and it's just everyone, right? Whether you
Mhm.
know it or not. And so it is a super fascinating time that's going to be extremely transformative. And I take it with a sense of optimism because I know also given everything that you hear in the news, I think your sentiment can be all over the place, right? There's people that have pessimism about it, or are scared of what might happen, and there's a lot of uncertainty for sure. But I think optimism has been a theme in our conversation today and in my life, and so I take it with like a huge sense of optimism and excitement. So yeah, I'm very happy to be going through this time in my career.
Yes, you're squarely in it, whether that be in a startup level or at an enterprise level, but it should be so cool and interesting to see it from two vantage points on what's about to happen.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
what a journey going from, digital advertising, putting on that ad sales hat to putting on that tech hat to now integrating investor hat in addition to your tech hat. What are you most excited about in the coming months, maybe 2026?
Yeah, I like to tell people, right? Don't get it twisted. I have a lot of passion points and things that I do beyond my day job and beyond my corporate job, right? But that is my main focus and priority. And so I am very excited about my career here at Microsoft. So I'm learning a ton, which I think is amazing for the time that I'm in my career to
Yeah.
come. And yes, I have some, skill sets that I can bring to the table and some experience, but I'm also getting to learn so much about this side of tech and this side of the world. And so a ton of, learning ahead for me there. And so super excited for that. And then on the investing side, just really getting more robust, right? So we have this fund. It's still somewhat of in its infancy, but really taking off. And so, yeah, really excited for a year where we really kind of establish Ghost Angels and continue building that community. And so, I am filled with excitement on both sides and in both hats, as you say. And I often describe it as a hats. So funny that you
Mhm.
say that, right? Like my Max hat and my whatever corporate hat that I'm wearing. And so, yeah, tons of excitement. I think 2026 is going to be a year of a lot of work, but a lot of exciting new beginnings.
Yes. Yeah, you planted the seeds in 2025 and we're going to see a flourish kind of in the new year. If we were to wrap with maybe advice for people who planted their seed as well, but they're still waiting patiently, is there any advice that you can give for people who are in it, kind of in the tunnel, haven't seen the light yet? Is there anything that you want to share?
I think two that come to mind. I think I love the optimism has been a theme again today, right? So I think some of that
Mhm.
optimism, you need that energy, right? So if you're in it, and to your point, you haven't maybe, the seeds haven't, sprawn and you haven't reaped the benefits yet, maintain the optimism because that exudes out, right? And you put that energy out in the world, you put that energy out in meetings that you have and conversations and interviews. And so you need that energy, whether you've been in it for a while. I think maintain that positive energy for yourself and for the rest, right? I think that's very important. But the second is that, I mean, we talked about leadership and coaching and teams. It's not a one man show or a one woman show, right? It's a personal journey and it's your personal career. But I'm a big fan of Scott Galloway. One of his sayings is, agency or excellence is in the agency of others. Bring people into the fold, into the mix. Like you're not in that journey alone. So whether that's friends and partners in your life, family members, as well as other acquaintances and professionals that are going through this as well, and you can be comrades together through their journey or people that have gone through it. Just kind of build your team, build your sort of board of advisors and supporters along the way, so that you don't feel like you're alone at it. And don't be afraid to ask for help and to ask for advice and to have those conversations, because I think they're very important. So that would be my two top advices: is just bring that positive energy, just make sure that you're doing it in a team and not a one man sport.
No. So many goodness within a given time frame of this episode. But yes, I love both of those advices. And thanks so much again, Max, for coming in.
Thank you. I love that you're doing this project. I was really happy to hear about it when you shared, and I really appreciate the invite.